take this time to begin the interview segment with Ms. T. Morgan Dixon. Ms. Dixon is the co-founder and CEO of Girl Trek, which is the largest health movement for Black women in America. Ms. Dixon helps mobilize Black women to be change makers in their lives by encouraging them to walk and to move their bodies. Girl Trek also has a podcast called Girl Trek's Black History Bootcamp, and that is available on Apple Music and on Spotify. Prior to Girl Trek, Ms. Dixon was on the front lines of education reform. Thank you so much, Ms. Dixon, for taking the time to be here today.
You're so awesome and you're so adorable. Are you kidding me? Thank you for having me, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, I miss it. What grades are on the call here?
I'm a sophomore.
Oh, yes. I used to be a high school teacher. I miss this. Hi, everyone.
So before I begin with my questions, I just want to thank you again for being here. It's an honor to speak with you because I actually listened to Black History Bootcamp this summer with my mom, and that was like amazing. And so it's really cool to finally meet you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my first question, I noticed that in the TED Talk that you did with Miss Vanessa in 2017, you introduced yourself as the daughter of Carol, daughter of Letha, daughter of Willie, and daughter of Sarah. What is the significance of this type of introduction?
It's such a great question. So first of all, what it does is it establishes you in a place and time, and it reminds the world that you don't come alone, that you come bearing the legacy and gifts of the women who came before you. And you can do that in 30 seconds by naming yourself in that way. So when I say I'm daughter of Carol, what you need to know is I learned how to smile from a woman who desegregated her school. But when I say and she is the daughter of Letha, what you need to know is that I come from a woman who knows how to smile and had 11 kids and was a sharecropper. You understand what I mean? And so like going back, and I can go all the way back. I can actually go all the way back to the west coast of Africa, which is 9 generations for me, which is unusual for an African-American to be able to do that. And I feel so grateful that I stumbled across the records to be able to do that. And I just think it connects us. It's this kind of umbilical cord of grace and legend and power and mysticism. And like, can I say badass on here? We're badass people. sorry. Don't fire me, principal, or whoever's on the phone. So I think, so that's the significance. And then I think last but not least, you know, I have a dear friend, you all may know him. His name is Nick Tilson. And Nick is with the Navajo Nation. And the reason you may know him is because he and a bunch of freedom fighters were arrested when former president went into South Dakota in order to have a rally at a sacred ground underneath whatever that ridiculous monument is with all the presidents, Mount Rushmore. And so these Native American activists started, but long story to say, whenever Nick starts talking, he stops and gives a word of prayer in his native tongue to his ancestors before he even starts talking on a Zoom call. It'll just be like us. It's like, Nick, what are you doing? He's like, excuse me for a second. He just like goes in. And I think there's some beautiful reverence to paying tribute to the people who came before us. That's the answer.
Thank you. So before Girl Trek was born, I read that you served as the Director of Leadership and Development for Achievement First. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Oh, yeah. So out of college, I think this will be even good for people who are considering life and what you want to do. So out of college, I went to the University of Southern California, and then I went to Howard University for a year. Long story, we'll talk about it later. But I was a freedom fighter, that's all you need to know. And so, and after that, I had a decision to make. I had studied something called public history, where I had the opportunity to go and interview the remaining members of the Tuskegee Airmen, or I could go and work at a national park as a park ranger at the King Center for Social Justice, or I could be a teacher with Teach for America. So I went to go be a park ranger. I was going to be a park ranger at first. And I was there for the summer, and I was just like convicted inside because it was in the hood in Atlanta. And I was convicted, and I was like, girl, you better go be a teacher and give back to your community that raised you. So I literally got in my car, drove to Houston, where we had our summer training for Teach for America, became a teacher, came back and taught at a high school, South Atlanta High School. From there, every year that I taught was still the most rewarding work I've ever done. But I still had a calling that I needed to do more to change the systems that were causing people who look like me to be unfairly disadvantaged in life. And so I thought the walls of my classroom were starting to like cave in on me. And I still question that decision because I felt like the work I did in the classroom was some of the deepest, richest, most meaningful, life-changing work for people. But for me personally, I was just like, I need to do something else. I need to do something else. I need to do something else. It's a restless spirit that I've grappled with my whole life. I don't know if it's always great. But in this case, it turned out okay for me. I moved up to New Jersey. I became like a school administrator, principal, vice principal. And I served in both roles. And then this is the thing I was talking about. I was like, well, this is a school. I need to get out of here kind of thing. And so I was like, well, let me go try to start new schools in New York City. So there's a guy in the New York Times. Here's a good lesson for everyone listening. There's a guy in the New York Times, and he was writing this article about how high schools are designed all wrong and how there should be a clear like K through 16 where it seamlessly goes into university and where there are job opportunities on the other side and different corporations. It was like wild thoughts. But I was digging it. I was digging that level of innovation. So I called him, guy on the front of the New York Times. I called him. His name was Richard Kahn. And I said, Richard, I think you need me. He was like, who are you? I was like, my name's Morgan. And he was like, great, well, come see me. And that's a good lesson, that know your worth, know your value, and people will acknowledge it in the world. Now, granted, I had no idea what I was doing. I went there and he made me his director of new school development, which meant I started new schools in New York City. And while I was starting new schools in New York City, I went right back to kind of my classroom sensibilities of looking at what my students needed in all the schools. We worked in 27 schools eventually. And they needed healing, health, space, air, to take the pressure off, good food, justice. And the stuff I was teaching at the time was not nearly as progressive as the needs of our students. And so I said, well, what if and I started imagining different things that we could do. And one of the things that I imagined was starting to take girls hiking outside, which was not a right size solution, but whatever. And then from there, Girl Trek evolved. We said, what if we got 1 million girls and their mothers to start walking together, talking together, and devising and designing solutions together? That's how I got here. Hope that answers your question.
Yes. So the end of your question kind of segues into answer. The end of your answer kind of segues into my next question, which is about Girl Trek. So Girl Trek was formed in 1996, and you and your co-founder, Miss Vanessa, met in college and bonded over the shared belief in radical acts of self-care. What did Girl Trek look like back then? And then did you feel like you were ahead of your time in this conversation about radical acts of self-care?
Yes, but what Girl Trek looked like back then was do-rags and Tupac. So, it was me and my friend literally fighting the good fight. I mean, we were going to like prison industrial complexes with Angela Davis because we were radical. Then we were like, we're going on vacation to Jamaica because this is what self-care looks like. And I laugh because Girl Trek's not that different now. Girl Trek is being bold about the kind of life you want to live. It's being intentional about the people you surround yourself with. It is being kind of gracious for the solutions that are out there and devoting your woman power to supporting those solutions. And we were doing that back in college, albeit not quite maybe as graceful, but we were doing it back in college. So I hope that answers your question. And Girl Trek didn't start, and it only started like 10 years ago. So it didn't start when we were in college, but it kind of did. So I like you, and I'm digging your question. It kind of did. It kind of did. We say that Girl Trek is wherever there is 1 or 2 women gathered who are determined to live their healthiest, most fulfilled life. That's where Girl Trek is. Just buy yourself a shirt. You're a chapter. Congratulations. Put a stamp on it. So y'all can start one at the school there. And it's just like, can we devote 30 minutes a day to walking and talking about solutions? And that's it. That's the pledge.
One more question. Were there ongoing conversations about self-care back when you were in college?
No, no. Someone recently called us the pioneers of self-care. I was like, that was Audre Lorde. But like, I understand what they're talking about, because on a large, we have 1 million members now, and we have a big following on in kind of content creation. So we just did, you mentioned Daughters of before, we did a Daughters of series that had like all the presidents of the sororities who unified for the first time. And then like the daughters of Dr. King and Malcolm X came together for the first time, kind of like, these kind of like juicy conversations, or like Angela Davis and Nikki Giovanni. Don't know if you guys are maybe too young to know who they are, but, talking about stuff. And so we have a lot of, and then we walked on the Underground Railroad 100 miles, me, Vanessa, and 8 of our friends who are on staff in 5 days. I heard somebody talking about like extreme sports. That's extreme. That's like a marathon every day. It was too hard, but like 9 million people watch. So we have a platform, and in that platform, we have revived the kind of womanist theory from people like Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, that say like this country was designed to exploit your labor. So self-care is actually a radical act to say, I am worth my time. I am worth resting. I am worth caring for myself, and not in the service of other people, but just because I'm good enough, is radical. So no one was talking about that when I was in college. And in fact, I was not taking care of myself. I was with a raggedy old man. Listen, I was not taking care. Do not let somebody pour their fears onto you. This old guy in college, it was just like not good. Vanessa either. We were not practicing self-care in college. So learn from our mistakes and do better, and like know your worth. Like know what you're worth and be like, I could do better, or I don't like that, or no, I don't believe that, like just know where you stand, take up space.
Yes, I really like what you said, that self-care in itself is radical. That really spoke to me. My next question. In November of 2016, Girl Trek became the largest health nonprofit organization for Black women and girls. Congratulations. And how did that achievement feel? What did it mean to you?
Holy cow, these are good questions. No one's ever asked me that. Go figure. How did I feel? I felt a little numb. Can I be honest? Like I literally left it on the court. Like I don't know if you've ever, you certainly haven't, you guys are too young. Michael Jordan back in the day, he has this famous basketball game called the flu game, where he played the game with the flu. And it's like a tearjerker, because you could tell he don't feel good. He got the towel on his head. He's like this, but then the whistle blowing, he just come out like Air Jordan, like, he comes out. That's how I felt on November 18th, 2000. I felt like, Lord Jesus, I left it all on the court. I was tired. We only have a staff of 14 women and lots of artists and creatives and volunteers. But it was hard to get 1 million people to do something together. It hasn't been done that much in history. So it was hard. And so, come September or something, we were like, oh, we got 200,000 more to inspire. And we just went into overdrive. And actually Black History Boot Camp that you and your mom listened to was a huge, how could we have reached you? You know what I mean? It was a huge boost to get us where we needed to be and to get women walking. Because it wasn't good enough to sign a pledge or click a like or give a thumbs up. We wanted people in the streets. So I felt numb. Now, after that, we take something called a self-care sabbatical from December 1st through Martin Luther King Day, January 15th. I highly recommend it. And then I felt awesome. Then I was literally like just laying out on the porch, just looking at the sky like, wow, think of what we can do now. 1 million Black women together, walking and talking and changing everything. Like, what is the first thing we do? So that's how I felt.
Thank you for that insight. As a Black woman who is an entrepreneur, what advice do you have for Drew students who are chasing their big dreams?
Woo, y'all do it. My biggest piece of advice is study the people who were game changers before you. If you haven't started listening to Black History Boot Camp, listen, just go on to Apple or Spotify and pick names that seem like your favorite kind of people and start to study the blueprints of the women who came before you. Now, that might seem dusty and old and boring. Trust you me, it's not. Like today we talked about a woman named Mahalia Jackson, who put thumbs up if you know who she is, thumbs to the side if you don't, thumbs down if stop playing. Kind of. You heard of her kind of sometimes? Yeah. She was the first gospel singer to sing at Carnegie Hall, world famous, most powerful woman like in the 60s, like around like pop culture. And she was the sound of the civil rights movement. And she sang at Dr. King's funeral, and she sang at the March on Washington. So I always thought she was just kind of like a prissy, like gospel singer in a robe. What I found out is that she's from New Orleans, and that when she first started, like it was shady, and she had to move out of her house when she was like 14 and 15. Then she moved to Chicago because she said God had a calling on her life. Then they tried to get her to sing the blues with Ma Rainey, and like her cousins are singing the blues, and then she was just like, no, I'm going my path. I'm doing my thing. She turned down record deals. She turned down money. She left her man when he started gambling and talking about she needed to go sing in the clubs. And she said, no, I have a calling over my life. There's something so powerful about seeing that Mahalia Jackson started off as like a confused 14-year-old. You understand what I mean? And like, that means you too can follow that pathway. And I can name 20 other ones, 20 other women who have just deeply inspired me. And so my actual, like the matriarch of Girl Trek and my personal favorite woman in history is Harriet Tubman. And so the most concrete advice I can give you, don't wait for anybody else. Go after your dream now. If you want to be a writer, start writing. If you want to be a filmmaker, start making them. Because you never ask permission about your life. Never ask permission to save your life, to build your life, to create your life, to expand your life, to be abundant, to be big. Never ask permission to take up space. So first, go after your dreams. That's what Harriet Tubman taught me. She was like, her brothers was going to run away with her. And then they didn't have to go back. And then she was like, bet, I'm going to go ahead and go by myself. When I learn the way, I'm going to come back and get y'all. So that's the second lesson. You can't do it alone. You can't sustain it alone. But you got to lead and then come back and get people to support you. This notion of solo leadership is male and often white, right? It is this notion that that you can go it alone, pull yourself up from your bootstraps. Well, as an African American woman, I actually know that's a myth, that nothing sizable has ever happened without a collective group of energized people, right? So you have to learn how to come back and get people. And then the third one is, there are allies all around who can help you succeed. If you can't find them, I'm one of them for you. I am one of them for you. If there's a way I can personally help you, I'm one of them. And I'm saying there are people all around waiting to conspire for your success. If somebody tells you you can't do it, it's a bold-faced lie, and that's their fear, not yours. Don't believe them. That's my advice. And then follow joy. Follow joy. I had our staff do this really cool exercise when we came back from the sabbatical, where I said, okay, draw a circle here, draw a circle here, draw a circle here, like a Venn diagram. In this circle, I want you to put the things that you're highly skilled at, better than anybody else, better than anybody else. Like I'm a pretty good talker. As you can see, I'm a pretty good writer, better than most people, right? So write your skills in one bucket. Then I want you to put the things that deeply satisfy your soul. Like when I am doing this, I am lit up. When I am doing this, and those are maybe different because I'm good at writing grants, but they don't light me up, right? So I write, I'm good at writing this, I'm good at, and then what lights me up are things like talking to girls who are sophomores, right? Like that really lights me up. And then at the bottom circle, the things you do that are most impactful on the world. And only do like 2 or 3 in each bucket. And there's going to be something, a magnet's going to pull one of them in the middle. And whatever's in the middle between your high skills, your deep satisfaction, and your service to the world is where you want to devote your energy. It's where you want to devote your energy. So I hope that helps someone.
That was really deep. That was really good. I have one more question to end the interview. And this centers around self-esteem. Body positivity is a concept that I know many teenage girls struggle with. What is body positivity to you and how do you manage it?
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Well, it starts with looking. I think you can divide the world into two tribes. One tribe of people who walk by a glass mirror on the sidewalk and look at themselves, and the tribe of people that I belong to who does not look at herself, who keeps it moving, right? And Vanessa and I are from two different tribes. When we were in college, we'd be walking down the street and she'd be like, in the mirror. And I would just be like, get out the mirror. Many years later, I recognized that that was body positivity. I recognized that it wasn't ego. It was her making eye contact with who she is right now. And if you can't look at yourself, that's the beginning. That's your practice. That's your assignment. Go into the mirror and see yourself. See your eyes. Be the looker. Gaze upon yourself and be kind to yourself. If the voice in your head were your friend, you wouldn't be friends with her half the time. Because she'd be like, ooh, girl, ooh, you got gray hair. This is the voice in my head. It's like, ooh, girl, ooh, your skin, ooh, girl. If that was your friend, you would be like, she's toxic. So get that out of your own mind. Monitor your thoughts. Really, really monitor your thoughts and look at yourself in the mirror and practice loving kindness. I mean, loving kindness, and compliment yourself and look at, I mean, like really look at your belly, really look at your arms, really look at your thighs, and like start to appreciate not only their function, but their beauty, You know, I wish I could show you, it's dark here, but I'm, 4 hours, I think, ahead of you all, 5 hours ahead of you all. And I'm in Accra, which is a city in Ghana, which is in West Africa. And one of the reasons I came here 2 years ago was I'm originally from California. I lived in New Jersey most of my life, and I came here on vacation, and then I just fell in love. And one of the things I fell in love with is when I looked around. I mean, there's 26 million Black people in Ghana, right? Or Africans. When I looked around, I could so clearly see their beauty. Everyone around me looked like a supermodel. And I was like, why is everybody so beautiful? And then I was like, do I look like them? I was just like, I think I might look like them. And for the first time, it dawned on me in a deep, deep way that all that magazine stuff was a lie. That actually I'm beautiful too, because my shoulders look like her shoulders, my forehead looks like his forehead, my lips look like her. You understand what I mean? Like I was piecing it together and realizing the embodiment of my own trauma, of the lies that I had ingested in my own psyche about what I look like. So that, I don't know if that answers your questions around body positivity. I mean, obviously, don't judge other people. Obviously, start with yourself. Don't judge yourself. But more importantly, source beauty in what you see in front of you. Find it because it's there. Every single person on here. One of the things we do at Girl Trek, we have something every year called a stress protest where 1,000 Black women and girls go, or young women go to the mountains of Colorado and the Rocky Mountains. It's so beautiful. It's so gorgeous. And one of the things we do is we literally hold each other's faces and like make eye contact. It's deeply uncomfortable. it's like deeply, deeply uncomfortable. But people immediately start crying because they see the profound beauty in a stranger. And the other person sees the profound beauty in you. So do that with yourself. Those are my thoughts.
That's it for my questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Dixon, for coming and speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me. You all are awesome.